Hello, hello. Welcome to Chronicles of a Daisy. My name is Emily Daisy Gasca, and I am your host. And I want to welcome you all to this community, this ecosystem, where I am creating an environment for my. I am creating an environment where we cultivate joy, love, peace, kindness, goodness, and teach how to navigate through the challenges of life. In this podcast, my mission is to equip educators and moms with biblical truths and scientific research to lead our future generations in a loving and joyful environment. So, thank you for joining me today for episode 4. If you like this, please follow, share with a mom, share with an educator, share with someone whom this podcast will bless. So thank you for being here today. My name is Emily Daisy Gasca, and I just want to invite you to this space where I will be sharing, teaching, equipping, and cultivating an environment and an ecosystem of women who are on a mission to have environments in their homes with their children and in their classrooms. If you're an educator in your school setting, thank you. Thank you for being here. I just want to share that with all of you and just let you know you are so loved. I love each and every one of you. So thank you for being here. Today, for episode 4, we're going to be talking about what happens when the roles are not identified and there are no boundaries, no borders. Last week, we talked about the family and the roles. We talked about La Familia. So today I'm going to dig a little deeper and talking about what happens when the roles are not identified and there's no boundaries. And before we begin, I just want to invite you to share if this has blessed you in any way, if you have learned something, if you feel this resonates with you, or you had that aha moment, please drop it in the comments. Please send me a voice recording. Share on Instagram, Facebook. You can follow me at Emily Daisy Gasca and just share. Let me know. I love hearing from all of you. That's what building a community and ecosystem is all about. So please let me know. I want to hear from all of you. But let's begin. So, the husband role. Last week we talked about how the husband is a protector. He leads the family and provides for the family. I am, as the reading environmental specialist, I am such an advocate for defining words. Even if I already know what they mean, I have an idea, I will define the word and look at the antonyms. That is one of the strategies I use to help me whenever I'm faced with a challenge or whenever I am trying to identify something or a solution. I always look for the definition of what the situation may be. So when we talk about roles, we're talking about the husband. The husband is the protector. He leads the family and provides for the family. Now, if you missed last week's episode, I do highly recommend that you go back and listen to episode 3 so you understand this a little deeper. But the husband, the protector. So, what does a protector do? A protector is someone who protects, or protection is to cover or shield from exposure, injury, damage, or destruction. A protector defends. A protector maintains the status of integrity, especially through financial or legal guarantees. Okay, so that goes along with the fact that the husband, the father in the family, is a provider. Isn't it amazing how there's so many connections, and once we start identifying things, everything just unfolds and makes sense? That's how our brain works. That's how our brain makes connections. If you want to learn something new, you always have to connect it to something that's already in your brain. Okay, that's for all my educators out there and even my mamas. Like, if you're at home and you want to teach your child something new, how there's got to be something that you can connect this new learning, this new teaching, to what they already know. If we want it to make sense, if we want it to truly impact them and for them to learn it, we have to find that entry point. How can we make that connection? Right? How can we establish this foundation and then the pillars to help them learn? So, as we go on to lead, the definition of lead is to guide on a way, especially by going in advance to direct on a course or in a direction to serve as a channel for. So, when we think about the husband, he is a leader. Husband is the one who technically the decision maker. If your husband is aligned with the goals of the family and truly puts familia first, then we trust that the husband is leading us in a right direction. Now, if a husband is has no integrity, because it also talks about that is what a protector is. They have integrity. A protector is integral. So if these qualities are lacking in the husband, then we really have to sit back and think what is the best way to handle this situation. That's why it's important to identify roles and to know, because if there's something missing, then the family dynamics are off and there's no alignment. As the provider, the husband is to supply or make available something that is wanted or needed. So, as the provider, the husband makes available what is wanted and what is needed. Okay, so identifying those roles and knowing what the husband's role is so critical, especially if we have students who are coming in from households where they're missing a father or that father male role. It is going to impact the way they are protected, the way they are led, and the way they are provided. Because then there's no boundary and it's stepping into the role of the mother, the wife. Or if some of our students are not being brought up by mother or father, it may be grandparents, aunts, uncles, foster homes. We have to think about that, because then we have to also provide some sense of security for them in order for them to be able to learn. I share the roots of a familia, of a family, because it's important to understand this is what we are born into. We are born into a family. And if there is a role missing, there's a gap. And our responsibility as human beings and as educators and moms is to help identify that, to see how we can fill that gap, because it is needed. So I'm going to move on to the wife role, the mom role, la mama, right? So our mothers are comforting, teaching, and nurturing. To comfort. What does it mean when we comfort somebody? It means to give strength and hope. We should always be showing our children and our students how they can be strong and courageous and hopeful if there's areas where there may be some strength lacking or missing. We cheer them on. We cheer the children on, our husbands. We're also comforting to our husbands. We cheer them on if they're facing a challenge at work, they're facing a challenge in the family. We cheer them on. You're going to get the solution. I trust in you, right? And the mother, the wife, is to ease the grief or trouble. We're there to help grieve and ease through the grief and troubles. We console. And I'm going to identify the antonyms for comfort, for the role of the mother, for the role of the wife, because I think it's important for us to understand what it's not. What are the antonyms of comfort? What does it mean to not be comforting? It means to cause distress. It means to cause anguish, to torture, to torment, cause heartaches, heartbreaks. Those are the antonyms for comfort. I share this because sometimes when we're not sure or we're not suited up with tools that we need, equipped to teach our children, to comfort them, to show them and lead them, or our husbands, then the way we are speaking, our actions can cause distress and anguish. That is why it's important for us to identify their love language and how to reach our students as well. How do we reach our students? How does our student respond? If our student is upset or angry, do we help them navigate through that? Or do we add on to it and cause more anguish, more torture, more torment? Little minds young adolescents and children have a really hard time navigating through challenges of life. It is our responsibility to show them, to comfort them, to lead them, ease the grief of trouble. That's what comfort means. But if we're constantly nagging or pointing out the things, the mistakes, then that causes anguish. And eventually, if it's enough at home and in school, it causes heartbreaks, heartaches. So I really want you to think about this as I'm sharing this, because this is very deep. Like, we have responsibilities, and it's time we live life intentionally and on purpose for a purpose. Our future generations, our young children are watching us and learning from us. Our voice, for all my mamas out there, our voice becomes our children's inner voice as to who they are. So think about, what kind of words are we speaking? Are we speaking words that comfort, edify, and exhort them? Or are we speaking negatively, pointing out flaws? This is the time where we reflect and truly make the decision as to how we are going to speak and pour into our future generations. The next word I'm going to define is to teach, because the role of a wife and a mother, a woman, is to teach, to cause to know something. That's what it means to teach. And the definitions are all from either Google or from Webster Dictionary. So you can look them up as well. I do advise you to go and do a study yourself and identify it, look at the definitions and the antonyms. So to teach is to know something, to cause to know how, right? Our responsibility is to teach our children how, to accustom to show action or attitude. It's amazing. When I saw this, I'm like, oh my goodness, attitude. Okay, it comes, our children are watching our attitude. The mom, the wife's attitude. That's who they're watching, and that's who they're picking up. So if you notice attitudes in young children or your adolescents, it's time to sit back and reflect. Is it a reflection of myself? If so, how can I fix this? How can I change this? Teach is to cause to know the disagreeable consequences of some actions. This one is so good. Our responsibility as a mom is to teach our children what are the consequences of our actions. What's going to happen if we do this? What's going to happen if we don't do this? That's the role of a mom. That's the role of a wife. We guide the studies. To teach is to guide the studies, and educators too. They are watching us. I was at a conference last week, and one of the teachers was talking about how to incorporate play in the classroom, in a kindergarten classroom. And she was sharing how in the beginning it's a lot harder. It's challenging. But right now her class is at a point where they will play and act out the learning of the day. So if she is teaching them 10 frames. She's teaching them numbers and how to add numbers, but she's doing it through play. So she will grab a couple of counters, manipulatives, teddy bears, anything, just objects to count. And she's showing them. She will see when they go to their stations, their centers, and they have the same manipulatives, the same objects, how they are mimicking what she does. That's their form of learning and play. And I share this because we impart knowledge. We guide the studies. Our children are learning from us, even our young adolescents. They are learning from us. They are watching. And as we impart the knowledge, we have to be mindful of our actions, our words, and how we show up as wives, as mothers. To all my teachers, my educators, how do we show up in the classroom? What is our attitude? The attitude that we have, they're going to reflect it back. Energy is it's very important that you understand you could set the tone for your classroom. You could set the tone for your home. How do we do that? It starts by reframing our thoughts, reframing our words. When we get our thoughts together, it's so much easier for us to be able to speak out of a place of joy or love or peace, kindness. Our actions will follow. Our words are going to follow our thoughts, right? There's a saying that if we can think it, we can say it. And if we can say it, we can write it. So if we're able and capable of thinking it in our brains, that's what's going to come out of our mouths. And if we're able to speak it, guess what? We just release those words into the atmosphere and that becomes our environment. If we write it, it just makes it 10 times more likely to come to pass. So I'm going to go on to nurture. What does it mean to nurture? Nurture is the sum of the environmental factors influencing the behavior and traits expressed by an organism. So it's allowing us to influence the behavior and traits expressed by the living organisms, by the family, by the children, by our husbands, by the children who are in our classroom, wherever we go, whether we are in our home, whether we are in our jobs, our careers, our school settings, whatever setting we are in. Nurture means to train, upbring, something that nourishes. It's like food. That's in the definition of nurture. It's to supply with nourishment. It's to educate. It's to foster. Notice how, in the definition of the roles of a husband and the roles of a wife, nowhere does it ever say control. And I want to talk about that because I know that I had my role misidentified when I thought I needed to be in control or I needed to control what my children were doing or not doing or how they were talking or speaking, what they were releasing. And that's not our responsibility. That is actually going against the role of a mom, of a wife. And sometimes we also want to put that on our husband, trying to control what they do, trying to control what they say, trying to control who they are. And that's not the role of a wife. It's the same thing in the classroom. We cannot control our children. What we can do is help them navigate through everything and teach them by nurturing them, by comforting them, by cheering them on and easing the grief or trouble. Our role is to ease the trouble, ease the grief, not to add on to it by trying to control them. We are very strong willed spirits. So are our children, especially when they're in that age where they're beginning to identify, like, I am an individual. I am not a part of my mom anymore. I can make my own decisions. I don't want to eat this. I want to eat that. I don't want to drink this. I want to drink that. Around 2 years old, a year and a half, some sooner, some later. And that's where sometimes we as parents confuse our roles and think we have to decide. Yes, with boundaries, right? But with showing our children, yes, you're able to make your own decisions. But when it comes to dinner, mom decides, dad decides, we decide together. When it's your night to pick or choose what we have for dinner, then it's your decision. But the other 6 days, it's other people's decision. And we have to respect that. I want to share what is the antonyms of nurture. The antonyms of nurture is to prevent, hinder, discourage, and frustrate. If we are not training our kids, then it's preventing them from living their best lives. It's preventing them from living their lives intentionally with a purpose, on purpose. I did not give the antonyms for teach because teach is the antonym is here. There's no teaching being involved. It's just absent. Share these roles. I hope that this has truly opened up your eyes to see things in a different way and to be able to understand. And as we remove layers, even as I was looking up and identifying words and doing my research, because I'm all about researching and having biblical truths to back up what I'm sharing with all of you. Everything that I am sharing every episode is with a purpose, and it's done intentionally and it's done consistently, because when the episode is released, we are ready to receive the information. That's why I want to thank you so much for being a part of this ecosystem. We are determined women who are empowering each other to change the lives and the trajectory of the children in our lives, whether it's at home or in the classroom or in the school setting. Now let's identify the roles of the children. The roles of the children, those are the seeds of two adults, a male and a female, husband and wife. Together, they came together, a man and a woman, and through that bond, a seed was cultivated and it germinated and it blossoms and it sprouts its birth. And their responsibility is to love and obey the parents, love and obey the mother and the father, love and obey the male figure and the female figure. What does it mean to love? It means warm attachment. It means enthusiasm or devotion to mom and dad. It means the object of attachment, devotion, or admiration. And to obey means to follow the commands or guidance of, to conform or to comply with. And that goes aligned with having boundaries, identifying the seasons in life of a child. There is a time in their life where we are to teach them right from wrong, yes and no. And then we are to train them. And then we're to coach them. And then we become their friends once they turn 18. If any of these roles were not established within the age frame, then when we get to 18, that friendship doesn't exist. It's not cultivated. And I'm not saying it's impossible, because it's not. We just have to go back to the root. Was that discipline established during that season of discipline between the ages of 0 and 5? Did we teach them right from wrong? Did we teach them yes and no? That yes means yes and no means no. So don't keep asking. After discipline between 5 and 12, are we training them? This is where that teaching really comes into play. This is where we really teach our children. This is why they're in school between 5 and 12. They are in school. They are beginning kindergarten, and it goes up until about 7th grade, 6th, 7th grade. And by the time they're in 8th grade high school, this is where we're just coaching them. And you even see this as educators. You as an educator, when I was in the classroom with my kindergarteners, first graders, second graders, but mainly kindergarteners, I was doing a lot of teaching yes, no, simple boundaries, because a lot of my students were coming in lacking the understanding of yes and no. So it's important for you as an educator to know, whether you have kids at home or not, it's important to know what the seasons of life for a child is and what is your role. How and where do you need to show up if they're lacking the understanding? And 5 to 12, you see how they are. You got to teach them. You got to train them. You're training them. This is why it's so important. If you teach children between 5 and 12 to understand, it's like teach. What does it truly mean to teach, as I defined it? We're pouring into them and we are training them. We are teaching them how to be citizens, how to be integral human beings, how to be kind to others, how to handle friendship disagreements, how to handle conflict, how to handle when we don't see eye to eye with another person. Do we get upset and just throw a tantrum, pout? Or do we teach them how to navigate through it? That is a very important, and even I want to challenge all of us and reflect on our actions, our roles, because I've seen full-grown adults have tantrums. And this is not to shame anyone or to put any behavior on the spotlight or down. No, the point of all of this is you being part of my community and my ecosystem is for us to know better and do better so we can navigate through things and close the gap and just challenge ourselves. I love growing. I love learning. I love teaching. So, how can I pour into myself if I love to grow and I love to learn? And I realize a lot of people don't see growth as something so easy or something great. But once we get through it, because we're always growing, some of us at a slower rate and some of us at a way faster rate. But when we grow and we get over that challenge, we navigate it through it, and something positive comes out of it, we feel so good. Our brains are wired to receive that gratification. So I am just challenging all of us and myself. I'm being very honest. As I was reading this, I right away noticed, okay, I need to really step into this role and start doing this and showing up like this. Why am I responding like this? Where is it coming from? What happened in my childhood that made me think this was okay? Because it's not. And now I come to this understanding and I'm going to do better because I know better. So, as I shared, we're going to talk about boundaries. What does it mean when we don't have any boundaries or the roles are not identified? What happens when the mom is trying to protect and lead, or the father is trying to nurture and teach, but not provide? Like, we have to identify these things, because if we don't, then there's no alignment and there's no unity in the family, causing conflict, causing tension, causing disagreements, causing arguments, causing spouses not speaking to each other for a week or two because of a mishappen, of a challenge, of an agreement, because of an argument, a disagreement. This is why it's so important to know the roles, identify them, and to be able to figure out what our role is. So when we do come up to a disagreement with our significant others or with our children, we're able to navigate through it rather than just try to shut them down or say they're wrong and that's it. Because that's not getting us anywhere and that's not getting our children anywhere. It's just teaching them avoidance is a solution. And avoidance is never the solution. Have you ever noticed how sometimes you'll have a challenge and you just ignore it, avoid it, disagree, have a blow up, and all of a sudden, okay, time passed and healed it. I'm going to say that quote unquote because I completely disagree. Time does not heal things. Accountability, actions do. So we've got this situation, right? And then, okay, everything's back to normal, quote unquote. Yet about a month later, or maybe even a year later, here we are in the exact same situation, except this time it's 10 times more challenging, harder, stronger. People are more upset. It's because it wasn't dealt with. It's because that challenge was not handled appropriately. That's why we need to identify our roles and what are the boundaries. Boundaries are to put a border on, to be close or next to, something that indicates or fixes a limit or extent. Boundaries show where one thing ends and another begins. This is where the mother role ends and this is where the father role begins. This is where the father role ends and this is where the mother role ends. This is where the children role ends and the parenting role begins. Boundaries in a relationships are kind of like this. They help each person figure out where one person ends and the other begins. In short, boundaries help you define what you are comfortable with and how you would like to be treated by others. That's how we need to identify our roles. What are our boundaries? Love you all so much. I truly thank you for being part of this ecosystem. I truly just want to celebrate you for taking this initiative to be part of this ecosystem and to transform the way our future generations are being brought up, to transform the way we handle things, and to just close the gap. Close the gap on all this people hurting people or people hurt people, because we have to take actions. We have to take accountability. And when we know better, we do better. And I know some of these things were kind of challenging, but everything, I guarantee you, was coming from a place of love, because I want you to be fulfilled and I want you to live your best lives. Because once you are living your best lives, your children, our future generations, your students are going to also start to live their best lives, because we are teaching them, we are guiding them, we are nurturing them, we are comforting them. But if we don't know our role as educators, if we don't know our role as the wife and the mom, we're also teaching them how to be wives one day, if we have daughters. We're teaching them how to be mothers. And the way our future generation, the way our children right now are being developed is so different from the way we grew up. What worked when we were growing up is not working. And a lot of the things did not work when we were growing up. This is why everything, I've given you the definition that I found on Webster Dictionary. I've given you the roles identified by the Bible to help you understand and put those together, and just sharing my wisdom with all of you. Because this is something that I'm so passionate about. It just grieves me to see certain things being done to our children. And it's just because a lot of people don't know. We don't know. And I'm just on a mission to close that gap. Because once we close this gap, guess what? The learning is going to come so easy for our children. The learning is going to come so freely for our students. Their brain is going to be freed up and able to truly just receive all the knowledge and have understood. But I want to thank you so much. I love all of you. You are amazing human beings. Like I mentioned earlier, thank you for being part of this ecosystem. Women on a mission to cultivating joyful and peaceful environments within our home and within our school settings, or wherever you may work with children. I love children, and I am just on a mission to help every woman out there to be able to create a beautiful experience for the children in their lives. So thank you so much. I hope this podcast episode 4, you receive it with open arms and that you are able to truly just sit down and journal. If you are part of my ecosystem, journaling is something that I highly encourage and recommend. So I hope that you sit and write down areas, things that you just see need some more work, because this is what it's all about. It's to be able to identify and take accountability, take action, hold ourselves accountable. But thank you. And you all have a beautiful, blessed day. And I just want to wish you all a day filled with peace, with joy, with love. And thank you for listening to Chronicles of a Daisy. Y'all be blessed. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.